Okay, looks like this is working here. And yeah, okay. Let's see if we can get started with this video. So my webcam is all messed up here. Okay. Let's do this. I'm actually pretty sick right now. I'm feeling a little sick, and now that I think about it, I'm gonna try to give up my shift tomorrow night, because one of the things about me is that when I'm sick, I definitely do not want to be working in a restaurant. Definitely do not want to be working. Okay. So we oh, okay, that's Skype. This is Holden Manager. And we're going to start some session review here, and 18 hands to review. Okay, so this is a really nice session. I had like about 6 buy-ins at 25 and L, and this is probably the best session I've had in a while, and I've been running pretty cold lately. So let's actually let's just start it up and see what happens here. I should really probably be sleeping a lot more tonight than I did last night. Okay, we got 18 hands, ace queen off. I'm a little bit unsure about a situation like this, where you have something like ace queen off and you don't really want to just flat in middle position versus a 2017. The early position is 11%, so there could of course be a lot of like smaller pocket pairs and weaker aces that are going to fold to a 3-bet. Their fold to 3-bet out of position is 55%, but also there's like a 44-6, and I don't really want to get squeezed by somebody over here that might want to get a little tricky. I mean, their squeeze is only 3.4%, but we also have a 33-16 over here, and that they might come along if I just flat, and then it'll be like a 4-way pot, and then we're going to be kind of stuck in the middle, and then it's going to be harder to play. So I figured that I should just be 3-betting this, and we're a little bit deeper, just a little bit, so if he does call, and it's I can control the pot because I'm going to be in position, and I feel like this is fine. Something like ace jack off, I might actually just end up folding it. Like that might sound a little nitty, but I'm kind of a nit sometimes, I guess you could say. Yeah. Okay, so we flop top pair, which is pretty sweet. So whenever they open under the gun, and then they call my 3-bet, they have to know that I'm pretty strong because I'm 3-betting them from like an early position as well. And their fold to 3-bet is 55%, but you have to also take into account their opening range to begin with is already going to be a pretty strong range of 11%. So I'm going to give them a lot of pocket pairs, and I'm going to give them a lot of strong aces and suited broadways and things like that. So they could definitely be hitting that with a queen jack suited, queen king. 7% 4-bet. Kings and aces are probably going to be 4-betting me. So at this point, because the 8's on the board, and the 8 doesn't really matter that much, except if they have like 9-10 suited or jack 10 of hearts or something like that. I'm going to try to be setting this pot up for value against 10s, jacks, and 9s. And if I do this correctly, I might be able to extract value from 9s and 10s and jacks on this turn card here. So here, I don't really want to bet too big. I also have the ace of clubs, so that's not going to be scaring me too much. They check, and I bet about half pot, and I think that that's a really good sizing. I don't really want to bomb it. I mean, a queen's probably going to call again. Jacks might call, 10s might call, especially if they have a club, and they call. So I guess this is a spot where if they have a jack of clubs, or if they have a king of clubs, like jacks with a jack of clubs, or queen king with the king of clubs, they might be inclined to call a larger bet, because it could look like I'm being a little bluffy. Maybe I'm trying to represent like ace king with like I missed, and so I'm bluffing. But either way, they're not really going to want to call this again. I mean, I think that like 99% of the time they're not going to call this river bet with a queen king or another queen ace. They're not going to call this ever unless they have a club. And if they do have a club, I think that they're going to be, if they're going to be calling a half pot bet, I think that they're also going to be willing to call a bigger bet as well, because they might think that I could be bluffing this, especially since the pot's already $23. So I would actually like to bet this maybe like 15, or maybe even just shove. A king of clubs might call. A jack of clubs might call as well, only because they're thinking that if they're going to call with the king of clubs, I think that that is as equal as a bluff catcher as if they had the jack or a 10 of clubs, because I'm probably not going to be shoving this with like a jack or a king of clubs. It's either that I have the ace of clubs. I actually might do something like I might bet like $6 or $7 with like a king of clubs, and then fold, like bet fold. But they don't know this yet. Okay, so they fold, and I think that I could have actually bet a little bit bigger there. Maybe shoved it, made it look a little bluffy, and then just hope to get called by a king or a jack of clubs. I think that's really all I can hope for. And I think a half pot bet is not the most perfect sizing based off the range that they're going to call with, which is basically just like, as I stated, any of those clubs. And a half pot bet actually makes it look like I could be valuing something like a king or jack of clubs, and if they have a 10 or a 9 of clubs, they might interpret that as a value bet, and they might think that I have more clubs in my range than if I shoved, which is going to be polarizing me more. So I would only be repping an ace of clubs or complete airball. I guess that's my thinking, and I think that I should have actually shoved that river and hoped for a hero call with a jack or a king of clubs. Okay. Let's see here. What just happened? This is 50 now? Okay, that's kind of weird. I guess I jumped into a 50 now table. So the only reason I'm calling this is because Z-Bank here is a 41.25, and as you see, we're a little bit deeper, 75. That's like 150 big blinds, and I definitely want to play a pot with this guy and his multi-way, and jack queen off, and being deeper versus a fish is never a bad thing. They fold. I flop top pair, and they have a 70% bet flop and a 70% bet turn, which means that I think that I could get more value from check calling than I could from donking the flop and folding out all their air. They might be willing to bet their air, and I would get more value from that than I would from their calling range if I bet first. If this player was in the pot, then I would have bet first to get value from them on the flop, because they might have a tendency to check behind, considering it would be actually four-way at that time. So this player decides to bet, the one that's on the button, and I'm going to call. I don't see any reason to raise. So the pot's 960, and I think that a lot of the time, whenever I have a draw, like let's say ace 5 of clubs or ace 4 of clubs, 5 6 of clubs or 5 6 of spades, ace 4 ace 5 of spades, I could actually donk this pretty big, like $7, and fold out all of their underpairs to the jacks. And if they are drawing themselves, then I can actually I could get paid off that way as well. But I check, and I think that I would like to have seen myself bet there, because and now they have the ability to check back all of their draws, which means that if they miss, then I'm not going to get any value at all, and I could have gotten that value on the turn to a donk bet. And I think that that would have actually been the most perfect play, because they're not automatically going to put me on a jack if I do donk the turn here. I could be repping a pretty wide range of draws, because now there's 2 spades and 2 clubs on the board. And I mean, most players don't actually put you on a jack, like a trips, if there's 2 of them on the board. So now whenever the 9 hits, the 9 of spades, this is a mandatory bet. They could have like ace 9 of heart or clubs. They could have like a 9x as well of some sort. They could have pocket 10s, pocket 8s that might want to look me up. Maybe even ace high if they think that maybe my club's broke or something like that. You know, but it's a mandatory bet. And because they check back the turn, I don't believe that they're going to have a jack at this point. Yeah. So they call. And it doesn't show what they have, but they might have had a 9x or like pocket 8s or something like that looked me up. Pocket 10s even maybe, because their 3-bet's not too big. So yeah, I think I should have donked the turn there. And it goes into my play style because I would balance that with my draws as well. So I wouldn't only be repping trips there. That's very important for anybody watching this to understand that you have to balance your donking range. And I love to donk, and that was a really nice spot to be donking, I think. So I'm opening aces here, and I need a drink. Getting called by 34-11 on this board. Well, okay, they decide to donk themselves on the 10-4-2, and they only have like 40 big blinds remaining, so I guess you can make an argument for just shoving here, or I guess raising like to $4 or something like that. But I don't know. I believe that that's actually unnecessary, because it is possible that they're doing this with air or with something like 8s or 9s that are just trying to win the pot on the flop. Jack, Queen, and King, Queen of spades are in the range, and you know, other spades are in the range as well. But I don't think that they're going to only be doing this with spades, and I don't think that they're only going to be doing this with strong 10s. So I think that I could call this one time and then hope that they could shove this or something like that. Like maybe they think that I'm on a draw or something like that. So they bet again pretty big, and now this is go time. This is whenever I just want to get the money in. I mean, it's probably going to go in anyway. And they call, and they had 10 queen. So I don't want to sound like it's that big of a difference between raising the flop and then just calling, but I do believe that if they do have, okay, if they do have a 10x of some sort, I don't believe that they're going to be folding to basically anything. I mean, I guess if a king comes out, then maybe, or like a jack, but again, I could probably get value from them on the turn as well. They're probably going to call a turn bet if they have that 10. But again, a lot of their air, if they just feel like trying to win the pot, then I can keep that range in, and maybe they'll hit, if they're doing this with like queen jack of hearts or something like that on the flop, then maybe they'll hit their jack or hit their queen, and that would be a recipe for getting the rest of their money in. So this is 25 an L. Okay, the guy doesn't really have much money left. Railroad rich, you know, with a $5 stack at 25 an L. So this guy calls, 1915 calls, in the blinds, calling a 3-bet. Cold calling a 3-bet. I'm going to put them on pretty strong pairs, like 9s, 10s, jacks that are afraid to 4-bet. Queens even, you know, because a lot of players won't be 3-betting queens, or I mean 4-betting queens, but maybe with the 13% they would be. Their 3-bet's pretty low, which makes me believe that they're a pretty tight player. Early position is 14%, so they're not really looking to gamble. They're not going to be having a lot of suited connectors and things like that. Definitely premium hands right here. And I don't believe that they're going to have any hands that are going to want to bluff post flop, like equity hands, like 10 jack suited that might want to like check raise and stuff like that. I think that they're going to play their hand pretty straightforward. And if I face resistance, I'm going to have to be scared shitless because we're pretty deep as well. This is 25 an L, and we're both pretty deep. I'm not going to want to face a lot of aggression from this player. And, well, I just know Vlad VV here is pretty tight to begin with. Actually, because we're deeper, I think that their calling range might be a little bit wider as well. So 7s, 5s, and 4s are probably gonna want to call this pre-flop, and maybe some suited connectors actually. So I didn't really think at the time, but because we're so deep, this is almost 200 big blinds. Because of my initial range of like strong pocket pairs and suited aces and things like that, I'm gonna bet this pretty big and hope that they have like maybe suited hearts or jacks or 10s that are gonna call a really big bet. I feel like maybe I could have gone a little bit bigger here, like $5. Okay, maybe like 475. I don't want to make it look like I've got aces or something like that, but I think 475. I think 430 is like the lowest, the absolute lowest that I would go. And they call. And so this turn card here, basically I'm not going to be afraid that they have too many flushes. Ace Queen of hearts, maybe Ace 10 of hearts, but really probably not, because I 3-bet pre-flop and they're not going to want to call that. So Ace Queen of hearts or pocket jacks, pocket 7s, or set at this point. And I'm not really sure that they're going to be like going balls deep with a set here. Because I'm not actually giving them any flush combinations except for one, because the Jack of Hearts and the King of Hearts that I'm holding are blocking like all the combinations that they could possibly have. I mean, Queen 10 suited, even Jack 10 suited can't be there. 10, so it's 10-9 suited, 8-7 suited, things like that. And because of the 4-5 as well. So 6-7, 7-8, 8-9, 9-10, and those are like extreme maybes. And I figure that if they have jacks, like they're not gonna be raising me anyway. So I'm gonna have to hope that they have like pocket tens, pocket nines, pocket eights, and pocket queens that are going to maybe want to call a small turn bet. But they fold. So I like how I played that hand. I think that my bet sizings overall, like my flop could have been bigger. Definitely could have been bigger because of the range that I assigned them. They're almost never going to fold tens, nines, jacks, queens. If I bet like $4.75 or maybe even $5 here, a $5 bet in the 685 is really not that big. I mean, it's a good bet. I think 5 could have been a really nice bet. And I would have done that with like pocket tens and pocket jacks as well. Probably. They might think that. Pocket tens, probably not, because I would actually assign them jacks and queens in their range, and I'd be a little bit scared to like make the pot too big. So we have pocket kings here, and kicking hook over here wants to play with me. 41-5, 0% 3-bet. So a 7 could easily be in their range, but a lot of other hands, like a lot of other trash and pairs and ace highs would call me as well. So I would like to see myself I like to see myself pretty much pot this. There's a lot of hands that would call. 155, I guess, is okay. One set. I could have gone a little bit bigger, I think, like 165. But they call. I mean, it's not too bad because they're still going to want to call with like all their diamonds as well. And because they're 41-5, they were the chasing type. They're going to want to chase. Okay, so when this jack hits and then the 2 diamonds come out, this jack of diamonds is opening up a lot more combinations. All the diamonds, all the clubs, 9, 10, 8, 9 are going to give me a problem as well. 6, 8, 4, 6, any kind of a jack X that floated me or had clubs. So this is a time where I should be betting more like 350 at least, 375, maybe even $4 here. And I think that I could have gone a little bit bigger. I could definitely have gone bigger here because of all the draw. There's a massive number of combinations that are going to call this a bigger bet here on this board. So whenever the club completes, I think that this is a tricky spot. Like, I don't really see them betting with something like ace-5. And I would be more willing to say that if they do have a jack at this point, it's definitely likely that they have clubs to go along with it. He may not be the type of player to float me on the flop with like 10 jack. I mean, okay, so fold flop is 67%. He might just be like one of those passive like fit or fold type of fish that like to see a lot of flops but then fold if they don't hit anything. I feel like I could have extracted a little bit more value on the flop in the turn. And I guess I don't want to sound too nitty, but I think betting this is fine versus a 41.5. I think betting this is fine. Like a $6 bet, like a half pot bet. Yeah, I think that's fine. And they call. Yeah, because they're 41.5, and there's 3-bet percentage is 0. So they could easily have actually floated me on the flop with something like Ace Jack, King Jack, pocket tens, pocket eights, pocket queens. Maybe like 9-10 of diamonds, 9 ace of diamonds, 9 king of diamonds, things like that would call as well. Plenty of combinations that actually are greater than only the flush combos. Another reason is because of the way that the clubs are spread out, like the king 9-7. I think that type of a texture kind of diminishes some of their club combos as well. Like, you can't really have 9-10, you can't really have 7-8, you can't really have 8-9, you can't really have 7-6 or 5-6, and you can't have something like 9-king or ace-9 suited. You know what I'm saying? So, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. But I feel like in my head it makes sense. So he would have to have something like Queen Jack, Queen 10, 10-8. Well, 10-8 has a straight. So like, well, as I'm saying, like, I don't know. I feel like it's gonna have to be a lot of premium clubs, or no clubs. And again, it doesn't show what they have. That's kind of annoying because a lot of the times it actually shows what they have. So I think betting that river was perfectly fine. A bet fold, obviously, because I don't see them bluffing there ever to triple barrel. Like, what are they going to be turning into a bluff if it's not a flush? This is actually a group chat that I'm in. This one player is actually, I think he's a winner at 10 NL, but struggling at 25 NL, and he's kind of worrying about a hand that he bet second pair on the turn, and then he got raised, and now he's like second guessing himself, like maybe he shouldn't be betting second pair for value on the turn versus like nits and things like that. But myself and somebody else, like Counterfeit, we're basically saying that his bet is fine. Like he can't be hard on himself. Okay, so we have a 65-7 and a 44-6. We flop top pair on a super drawy board, and I should be potting this. Again, I don't know why I'm not potting it, things like that. Again, I don't mind making the pot bigger than maybe somebody else might be comfortable with, because I feel confident in my own ability to fold if I face aggression, and I can interpret the situation pretty accurately to know if I should fold or not most of the time. So in the meantime, my philosophy in the micros is to just bet, just bet, and don't really overthink things, don't really analyze anything until you face aggression. And once you face aggression, then it's like you're gonna have to shut down and let the timer run down a little bit and really, really deeply think about what just happened and what the correct action should be. But until that time happens, I don't think that you have to worry about much. Maybe like 50 an L, 100 an L. You're gonna have to kind of like think a step ahead. But not at the micros. So as you see, they're coming along. The other reason I should be potting this is because any one player could actually have a hand that wants to call here. But now if both of them have it, then like this player calls the 217, and now this guy is getting a ridiculous price to come along with their draws as well. So betting it like 250, potting it would have been super. I have trips here, and I'm not really worried about anything at this point. And if I set the pot up a little bit bigger, that would have been an extra 30, 60, 90. What? That'd be hell. Another $1, actually. It would have been like a $10 pot on the turn. That would have been not really nice, because then I could have like bet at like $8 and then called to a shove, like if anybody wants to shove a weaker jack or like a draw or something like that, then I can call it off, because I have a lot of cards that could like save me, like if the board pairs, I have jacks and aces that can come out. Okay. So in this video, my bet sizings are really not that perfect. I should definitely have bet this bigger, like 750, maybe even $8, maybe like 750. 6 is too low versus these players here. That's just way too low. Now whenever I hit quads, as you see, the problem here lies in the fact that the pot is 21 and he only has $20. This is not the best price for a shove. So if the pot was 10 on the turn and then I bet 8 and he called me the 8, then that would have been 26 on the river. This pot would have been $5 bigger, and he would have had like $3 less. So it would have been more like 17, maybe 16.50 into 26, which would have been an amazing price for him to call off with a 10 or an 8, like a bluff catching. So the only thing to do here is to shove, and they fold. Now that's not to say that they're going to be folding their 10, 20 to 20, but they're not going to be folding it 26 to 16. Like, I'm not going to make that argument, but I'm saying that I don't know what this board is going to run out as. So it's like, if the river bricked, I mean, this is pretty much a brick to a fish's eyes. They're not going to think I have quads if they have a 10, or if they have queens or something like that for some reason. Maybe even an 8 wants to call me now. Pocket 9s might want to call me. But this should have been a bigger pot on the river. $26 would have been really nice. And I would have gotten an extra of like 250 value out of that as well, and that's not a joke at 25 an L. I mean, that really increases your win rate. So that my bet sizings were not very optimal in that hand, and I'm being 4-bet by a 6.9 3-bet percentage player. Pretty wild player. Their 3-bet is not too big, but they're pretty fishy stats. And their bet flop is 83%. So it's another $3 to call, and that's like a 1 in 20. I think this is a really, really amazing price to call versus this type of a player. 20 to 1, or actually that's like, because there's already like $6 in the pot. But I think that if I do hit, then I'm gonna get paid off because they seem pretty weak player. Because their bet flop is 83% and they have a 6.9, like a 7% 3-bet, they definitely gonna have a lot of broadways and suited aces and maybe a few randoms, just like ace 5, 5, 6, 9, 10 of spades, like just things like that. So I should be calling this. The 6 hits on the turn, I check, and they check. And then whenever they check the turn, I'm not really sure I can gather too much information from that, except to say that I don't think that their hand is that strong. Maybe something like 10 jacks suited. I think that queens, kings, aces, jacks might have wanted to bet again on the turn. I think the 47% bet turn is pretty polarized to either having a pretty good value hand or not. Like this player has a 71% bet turn, so he's going to be betting a shit ton of draws, like gut shots, overs, backdoors on the flop, like a lot of draws basically. So whenever this player checks the turn, I'm going to think that they don't really have anything too strong. And if he bets again, like, I might be inclined to bluff catch with 7s here. But it depends on how big it is. If he bets really, really big, it might be a value hand that he checked back, like a flush, pocket 9s maybe. But if he bets a little bit smaller, like 12 or 13 or something like that, yeah, I don't know. I have to feel it out. But they check, and I win, and they have king, queen suited. And of course, I would make a note about them that says that they didn't barrel the turn without equity. That way I know in the future that if they do barrel the turn, then I can narrow it down to either like a value hand or like a draw that has equity. Like if they barrel this, then I can put them on like 7, 8 suited. Well, okay, they'd have to have like an ace of hearts, king of hearts, maybe a straight draw if they're barreling this turn, and if I can't really put too many flushes in their range. You get what I'm saying. So we have ace king suited here. And this player limps, and I want to build the pot up a little bit here. I think a c-bet is pretty good because I have a wheel draw, I have overs, and they might just fold out all of their air at this point. But actually I check. I don't really mind the check because this player is super, super passive, I think that's why I checked, because they're 44-6, 1.4. Super passive. So if they start betting into me, I can probably consider folding. Because they're super fishy, I don't really believe I should be donking this turn here, because I think that like anything that I have beat right now, anything that has me beat, I don't believe is going to be folding to a turn bet here, because they're 44-6. I don't think the 10 is going to scare away like a 5-7 or something like that. So I check, and they check, and now that the ace comes out, this is a mandatory bet on the river, and I think a bet fold is going to be a good line, and at this point I'm going to have to think that they have, I'm not going to be afraid of a 3. I mean, if they have a 3, I'm going to get raised, and then I can make an easy fold. And they might call me with a 10, or they might actually have a weaker ace at this point that stabbed the flop. Because he could actually have a lot of ace X in his range, because he's only raising 6%. He could still have like ace jack, ace 9. So I think I could have bet this a little bit bigger, just a little bit, like maybe 775. But I don't think this is too bad, because I can still get value from like maybe 9s, 8s, maybe even 7s, 6s maybe. Like, you know, just something super random that just wants to call me. And then they do this. This is ridiculous. That is a big ass raise. They are passive as I don't want to curse too much on YouTube, but they are passive, and that scares the shit out of me. So I'm gonna fold. Isolating with pocket 10s. This video is actually almost an hour long, and because I'm sick, I had to kind of talk a little slower to kind of give my throat time to kind of relax a little bit and not get too distraught, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not playing any poker today because I am sick, and I spewed last night like 2 hands, complete spew, because my head was so boggy, and I'm just like, I have my finger on the mouse and it's hovering over the fold, and I'm like, I'm obviously beat. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, how does he have this hand? Like, I know what he has, and I'm like, I have a baby flush here, and I'm being like donked into for like a freaking huge amount on the river, and I'm letting the timer run down, and I'm just like, I can't believe he just made that hand. I can't believe it. And so I'm like, I'm folding. Like, I know that I'm going to fold. I'm just kind of like letting myself enjoy the sorrows of being sucked out on, the pain, the bittersweetness of it. And then my finger twitches into the call, and I call it, and that's when I'm just like, okay, I'm done. Like, this is, I don't know why, my head is just complete mush right now. Like, so cloudy, and I'm just, oof. It was one of the worst calls of the century. Of course I lost because I had a baby flush. But yeah. So a 53-1 and a 33 over here. I flop top set. There's a lot of draws that can call. 9 jack, 8 9, spades, 9s, jacks, queens, kings that didn't want to do anything pre-flop because 53-1 could even have aces. Their range is going to be pretty wide. Aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10x, spades, things like that. So because there's two players in the pot and I have top set and they're fishy, I should be betting this like 4. I think 4 is going to be a good bet. Oof. That is terrible. Terrible bet. Like, I'm going to hit myself for that because that was that way face palm like that. Okay, that's a face palm moment. Awful, just so bad. Okay, well now I have a boat, so if they have pocket sevens, then I can just go into my man cave and cry. They're not doing that with quads, so I'm pretty sure I have the best hand now. And now I have to think like, they called my flop bet. So they have to have like either some type of value hand or a draw at this point. And now they're doing this. I feel like I should just get it in now. But yeah, I think I should have just jammed. I don't think it really matters if I call or not because it looks like they want to get their money in anyway. Like, what are they going to really be afraid of? And if for any reason they are doing this with like a gut shot or some dumb stuff like that, like it still gives them a chance to hit if they have like diamonds maybe. But even if I do, if they have a flush draw, they're going to be calling this off anyway. It's not likely that they have a 10x at this point. Okay, that's probably what I was thinking. I'm like, well, what kind of value hands are they actually going to do this with? You know. But then the other argument is that if they are doing this with a draw, and then you call, and then the draw doesn't come to fruition, then you're not going to get the value on the river. So actually, I think shoving this would be fine. That would actually be the best play. And I don't like seeing myself flat this after I've just gone through this argument in my head again. I think that was actually that was not the best play. They check. What am I doing here? I guess I was just like, I don't know. This is bizarre. I think at this point, oh, okay. So because it's like, oh man, what am I trying to say here? I feel like if they did have something that they wanted to get their money in with, like they would have been shoving here, and they would have shoved the turn as well. Like, I mean, why would they be betting the turn so freaking big, but then checking here? I don't know. That just didn't make any sense to me. So I felt like if I bet like $1, it might induce them to shove over the top with their air. Maybe. Like, it could just induce them to just shove and try to bluff me because I'm only betting $1. But I think that was a really, really bad plan. I don't know. I feel like there's still some value hands that they could be going crazy with on the turn and then be like, oh shit, he called me. What? And then, like, he decides to check. Like, I don't know, pocket 9s maybe. Maybe 10x. Maybe, like, pocket jacks. But it's a really weird line that he took here. like they had jacks. Like I'll just tell you that. I remember what they had. Um, it popped up on the screen as jacks, and then I'm like, I completely missed out on $10 of value here on 25 and L. Mainly because I didn't shove his ridiculous turn bet here. And another $10 would have been basically like a 5 BB win rate over 1,000 hands. This was a butchered hand. I butchered this hand, and yeah, let's just say I butchered this hand. This is one of the worst played hands ever, I would say. And it's embarrassing to know that this is going to be on YouTube. But anybody watching this should know that I was playing that like this is my 3rd month of poker. Like I don't know what I was doing on the river here. I don't know what that was. Yeah. No freaking idea. I'm gonna stop this video now and probably finish up the rest of these hands a little bit later after I get something else to eat, and maybe just relax a little bit, let my throat relax, because that was hour-long session for 9 hands. That's amazing. I don't know why it took that long, but thank you so much if you got to the end. I hope that I got to speak a little bit more in detail, and these videos are meant to help me improve and to remind me that I play like shit sometimes, as you can see in some of these hands, but also because I wanted to help other players, and it's really good for other players like that are pushing into 25 and L, or maybe even struggling with 10 and L, to realize that even though you can be a solid player and know your shit, that you're not always going to be able to translate that real time to the tables. And whenever you have distractions and you have like 4 hands going at a time, it's a little bit harder to interpret things in the best possible light. And your mind is just like, you got a timer, you got the sounds clicking and the buzzers, and you just like you just sometimes you just like and you don't really know what to do, I guess, and then sometimes you just do dumb stuff. But thank you so much. Hope that somebody is getting some value from these, and peace out.